Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Moxxie Coaching Podcast. It's Michelle, and it is Friday afternoon. It is sunny and beautiful, about 80 degrees. And yeah, I'm in a pretty good mood, so I hope you are too. Welcome, welcome. Thank you so much for being here as always. Just a quick reminder about the Women's Summit coming up in September. I am still waiting for information on how to pre-register for that, but I will send you the information, or I will pop it into the show notes as soon as I get it. It is going to be a free summit with over 40 women who are in the personal growth and development and spirituality fields, sharing their wisdom and their information with anyone who's interested. So if you are interested, mark your calendar. That is September 12th, I do believe. All right. So this week, we're going to talk about choosing questions for a spread. We've talked a lot about card meanings and becoming comfortable with your relationship with the tarot, but we haven't really talked a whole lot about spreads. And I know that I've mentioned a couple times that I often will read cards without a spread, but I think when you're getting started, it's really nice to have some guidelines. And there aren't a whole lot of resources that I've seen out there that are really focused specifically on choosing spread questions when you're trying to dig into your own stuff. Now, everybody knows that we glean a lot of meaning from the tarot by looking at each card and considering that card's meaning in relationship to the position in the card spread or in the card pattern. Basically, the way the cards are arranged and laid out on the table. New readers have a tendency to stick to the spreads found in books or online, and there are a ton of them. And that's great. That's a wonderful place to start. But if you're looking for something that allows you to truly tap in and dig into your own stuff, I'm hoping that this information is going to be helpful for you. So let's say that right now you are someone who is interested in learning how to read the tarot. You have some basic understanding of how the tarot works. You've been playing around with it a little bit, but you've been pretty much sticking to, spreads that you found on Pinterest or whatever. But I suspect, if that's the case, you may have found that the readings or the spreads are not meeting all of your needs. So what we're going to do is we're just going to learn how to meet your own needs and teach you how to structure a reading for yourself. Because unless you have things fully customized, there's only so much information you're going to be able to get. So, and this is my opinion, but I do this with all of my readings. Every reading that I do is just fully customized. I wouldn't say never, but I almost never look online for other people's readings. Now, I will say I'll pop on for, I am not by any stretch of the imagination an expert in the moon cycles as related to tarot and, specific readings that are done at specific times in the moon cycle. So that might be something where I would pop on and learn a little bit about that. But even then, I'm likely to tweak the card meanings, meaning the position meanings, not the meanings of the cards themselves, but the position meanings to suit my needs. because there's no point in spending time doing a reading if you're not going to get the information, or at least you're not setting yourself up for the possibility of getting the information that you want. And in some ways, this is just a caveat, but in some ways, this is also related to forming your questions. So remember that the tarot is going to provide you with results based on what you ask it for, not on what your head wants but isn't able to articulate. And that's a frustration that I've had. It's like, come on, how I'm having a hard time articulating what it is I'm looking for. And the tarot just sometimes feels like it's being a butt and not not saying, oh, I get it. Okay, this is what you're looking for. But it doesn't. So this is another way to customize things and get the most out of your tarot experience and the time that you are setting aside for your own personal growth and development. If you are a brand new beginner, then I suggest sticking with a few very simple 3-card spreads, and stick with those, just like so many of the teachings out there recommend. Stick with past, present, and future, or situation, gifts, and challenges. Keep it small, keep it contained, and then within those 3 categories, you can play around with your card meanings. So for example, you can create or formulate a question that is very much specific to you and still in the past position of the spread. And that is what's going to give you the most flexibility as you're learning, but keep you within a structure that you still have your training wheels on. Now, if you're someone who is ready to explore this a little bit more deeply, say you know your card meanings a little bit more, you have begun to develop a sense of how all of the pieces of the tarot and the spread, everything fits together, you're going to likely recognize that there are a lot of consistencies among readings. So, you're one of the people that has been around the block with the tarot a little bit, enough to have some experience under your belt, and enough to be able to start to recognize when you see a pattern, or when you see a consistency or a synchronicity. If you look at other people's readings, you are likely to recognize or start to see consistencies in how readings are formulated. A lot of readings begin with a significator, which is the card that represents the person for whom the cards are being read. So if I'm doing a reading for myself and I want to use a significator, then I am choosing someone who represents me. I personally don't usually bother with these when I'm reading for myself. And this is why. I assume that any card that comes up in a reading that is focusing on me and my stuff will potentially be a reflection of myself anyway. And that has proven true for me. So I don't often choose the significator. I wait to see what the cards are showing me, what I don't know is coming up as a reflection of myself at that time. And to me, that feels a little bit more valuable than making that distinction for myself. Now, if you are reading for someone else, significators are great. So that's another topic. So in addition to the significator, there are a few other what I call regulars that appear in various formats, but appear in many, 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 many readings. And especially readings that are specifically designed to tap into our own stuff. Other types of readings, are going to have other similarities. But the cards that come up in these types of readings are cards that are typically reflecting You, your conscious, your unconscious, the past, the present, and the practical steps that we can take to resolve our problem. So we're just going to go through these really quick. This is not going to be a hugely long episode, but I want you to start to get a feeling for how you can begin to really truly customize and create a spread that works for you. All right. Typically, cards that are related to personal growth and development, tapping into our own stuff, will have a position for a card that is labeled in some way, shape, or form, or relates to you specifically in one way, shape, or form. So questions that you might want to choose, and this is kind of like a menu system, and I will post the list in the show notes so you can see what I mean. But if you take this list that I'm going to provide to you and throw a dart at each one of the categories and pick one thing from each of the categories, you're going to come up with a reading. So it's Garanimals for tarot type of situation, if you have any idea what Garanimals are. So let's begin with the you. Questions like, who are you today? What's in your conscious awareness? What might be in your unconscious awareness that you need to dig up and take a look at? What are your thoughts? What are your feelings? Are there any verbal messages from yourself to yourself that are coming up in this reading? Your point of view. What is your point of view in this situation? If you are reading about someone else, if this is a situation related to an interaction or a relationship that you have with someone, then, a card representing you, your point of view, a card representing them, their point of view, and then a nice one is a card that represents the basic nature of your relationship at that time. So those are some basics. So think about just the different information that you're going to get from these different prompts or card positions that are all really valuable. They're just extremely different, and you can choose from, like I said, this menu of what works best for you on any given day. The next thing, most readings that are focusing on ourselves will bring up is some connection to your conscious and your unconscious. So cards about yourself, cards about what you know about yourself and what you don't know about yourself. Because a lot of times those are the cards that are the most instructive. When we get a card that comes up, the really instructive ones are those that we realize that it's an issue for us and we've been pushing it down or avoiding it or whatever, and the cards are like, nope, you can be, as passive aggressive as you want about this, but you're going to deal with this issue. Let's go through some questions. Things you hope for, consciously or unconsciously. Desired result, what you want this situation to look like at the end, whether you realize it or not. Things that you fear that could be getting in the way. Results that you fear, that whole, this is what I'm asking for, but maybe I don't really want it in my subconscious. What type of things are you expecting consciously or unconsciously? You can also talk about the advantages of maintaining the status quo in your situation. That's a really good one because a lot of times we get in our own way. We don't necessarily even recognize that we're getting in our own way. And we're just in a plateau, we're in a stagnant place. We're not moving forward. So this card position about looking at the advantages and or the disadvantages of maintaining the status quo can shake things up a little bit. It can say, yep, yeah, this is great. You're on the right path. Things might seem a little boring, but stick on this path and things are going to, continue on. Don't make any drastic changes. Alternatively, you could come up with a card in that position that basically says, holy crap, you need to make a change right now. And these are the areas in which you need to make that change. You can also ask your subconscious and your unconscious about what are some of the disadvantages and the advantages of taking a particular course of action or making a particular choice. How often have you been torn? Do I go this direction? Do I go that direction? Do I follow this career path? Do I follow that career path? Is this partner a better option or that partner a better option? The tarot is really nice as a way to help us work through things like that and can show us advantages of this particular action that we are considering taking or disadvantages of a particular action that we're talking about taking. And then another one, and this is the last one in the list, is what led up to this situation? What is it that led up to you getting desperate enough to sit down with your tarot cards and try to figure this out? And again, that's looking at your conscious, looking at your subconscious, and hoping to get some clues for what's been blocking you or why you've been feeling this way or, what it is you need to do to move yourself forward. All right, let's look at the past. These are pretty basic, both the past and the future. Number one, what is this situation based on? Meaning, what is the history, or another way to put it would be, what is the baggage that you have related to this situation? What type of self-image issues are getting in the way? What type of, past family situations are getting in the way? That type of question. What is it from the past that is preventing you from moving forward? Or what is it from the past, depending on how you phrase the cards and the question, that's motivating you, or however you decide to phrase it, but you are going to want to consider in some way, shape, or form looking at the past, because it's where a lot of stuff ends up. And we don't often realize it until we're older that things that we thought maybe we dealt with, we haven't dealt with. Things that we didn't think we needed to deal with, we needed to deal with. And anyone who has taken Psychology 101 understands that our past impacts our future hugely. So, what is this situation based on? What situations, and this is a little bit of a woo one, but if you're open to it, if not, just move on. What situations from your other lives, from your past lives, are showing up in relationship to this one? Because having some understanding of those past lives and those ancestral wounds is another way to help us move into the future powerfully. What is the basic nature of this situation from the past perspective? What has occurred in relationship to this situation in the past? What are the steps? How did you get here? And then where is this likely to lead in the long term and the short term? And those are starting to look at toward the future, right? All right, the future. Here we go. Again, your primary concern for the future. What are you doing to create this situation? Any reading I do for anyone, and I found that some people don't particularly like it, but it's the way I read. I want to come up with at least an idea, a solution, a direction that I can point people that gives them some practical tools, tips, tasks to help themselves move forward, right? I do not want to just have people sit here and say, oh, woe is me. This is my situation. This is what the tarot says. I'm like, no, yeah, okay. That kind of sucks for you right now, but let's look again and let's look and see what we can do to fix this, change this, modify this, make it work. So these are some of the future questions. What is your primary concern? What are you doing to create this situation? What are you doing to create what you desire? What are you actually getting out of this? That's a good one, depending on your situation, right? If you're in a situation that's just negative and you're frustrated, and you're trying to make some decisions about should I stay or should I go, that's a great question to ask. If you find that you realize you're not getting anything out of the situation, that's good information. All right. Additionally, what you're actually getting out of this. What are some things you could do to change it? What are the next steps? What are the obstacles or the blocks to that next step? So, all right, next step is to, I don't know, this popped in my head, come out to my parents. Well, what's the obstacle? Being afraid my mom's going to freak out, right? That type of thing. And again, that's kind of an unconscious thing. Sometimes something can come out, it's like, oh my gosh, I didn't even really realize that. But yeah, that is what's been bothering me. That is why I haven't, taken the leap off the cliff and come out to my mom. Also, in this section, you might want to think about what you think you should want, or ask the cards what you think you should want. Because I don't know about you, but there have been times when I have thought I wanted something, and then when I actually got it, I realized it wasn't at all what I wanted. The other thing you might want to look at is what you really want. So what you think you want, ask the cards, hey, what do I think I want? Or what do I think I should want? And then what do I really want? And take a look at the difference in those two cards. You may also want to consider what other people want, because that gets in the way very often, right? If you're concerned about coming out to your mother, which is completely understandable, you are concerned about how she responds because she may not choose for you to not be straight. So are you considering what she wants? Are you trying to spare her feelings? Is sort of what I'm getting at. So we have questions related to you. We have questions related to your conscious and your unconscious. We have questions related to the past and the future. And now this is my favorite part. This is the part that I always add. And this is what I call the practical step card position or card or whatever you want to call it. And here are the questions that I will often ask. Variations of these, some of them, not all of them, pick and choose. What are 3 things I can do to move this process in the direction I want it to go? What are 3 things I can do to learn X, Y, and Z, to learn how to set boundaries? What are 3 things I can do to learn to stand up for myself? Okay. What are 3 things I can do to remember to do something or to consider something, right? What are 3 things I can do to remember and remind myself how dedicated I am to achieving this goal when I get frustrated, when I get sad, when I get down? What are some things I can do to remember that fire in my belly? And then lastly, we have a few others. How can I begin to heal? How can I support myself? How can my partner support me? The options are endless, clearly. tons and tons and tons and tons of options that you can come up with. But I wanted to present you with this basic formula. I wanted to give you the list of questions because as we're learning, it's not always really clear how to translate a reading. We all know how to sit down and look at a book and, do a reading for our girlfriend or something along those lines. But to really sit down and to use this as a tool for truly tapping into our own stuff, sometimes it's nice to have a little boost. And for those nerdy people out there like me who love the woo of the tarot but love the idea of having a formula, here you go. All right, so give these a try. I would be really curious to hear about what you think about how and if you do a lot of readings for yourself and if you use any of these types of questions. All right, everyone, that is it for this week. As usual, thank you so much for being here. Please remember to like and subscribe and all of those good things. And I will plan on talking to you next week. Have a good one. Bye-bye.